Welcome to A Better You podcast. Let's start today to develop a better you. This podcast takes on life's challenges and obstacles, such as overcoming addictions, behaviors, midlife career changes, to keeping your family together. The show that gives you take-home assignments to overcome obstacles of the week. Receive godly wisdom for a more fulfilling and purpose-driven life with Anthony McFarland. Let's get started with crafting a better you.
Here's what you have to understand. While we can't control others' behavior, we can draw godly boundaries that will actually lead to progress for our own lives as well as for those we do life with. And so if you're ready to overcome the frustrating cycle of ineffective boundary setting, listen to me. This is the podcast for you. And I'm glad that you tuned in. And I also want to encourage you to share this podcast with those that you know and love. Now, with that being said, it's time to do some work. Get a pen, get a pad, get a piece of paper so that you can take some notes. Hey, grab a cup of juice, coffee, whatever you need to make this an enjoyable experience. Now, let's talk about boundaries. The first thing that you have to understand is that boundaries are rooted in clear communication. You see, the more precise you can express your boundaries, the more likely your boundaries will be respected. While you may need to repeat yourself, a few times, don't feel the need to apologize or explain your boundaries once you're clear on what your boundaries are. Like an invisible fence around the perimeter of a yard, boundaries establish where your space ends and someone else's begins. If a dog can recognize and respect that perimeter, so then can everyone else in your life. So now, what are healthy boundaries? Healthy boundaries are the limits you place around your time, emotions, body, and mental health to stay resilient, solid, and content with who you are. So some of the things that I'm going to share with you, some of these points will empower you to protect you from being used, drained, or manipulated by other people in your life, whether it's in your personal circle, business circles, your network, etc. See, you can set boundaries around your emotional energy, your time, your personal space, intimacy within a relationship, morals and ethics, material possessions and finances, even social media, believe it or not. Let me share something with you. I've experienced people that would, earlier on when I was learning social media platforms, that would send some crazy stuff. And I made it clear that I don't get down like that. Don't send me crazy stuff, right? Because I don't have space for it. I don't have time for it. I don't have the energy for it. And I definitely don't open up the door to a lot of the junk that goes on social media. Why? I have boundaries for myself. See, boundaries can be set with your family, friends, in dating relationships, your coworkers, even with your supervisors, as well as strangers. And although they aren't as blatantly clear as a fence or a wall or a no trespassing sign, healthy boundaries communicate to others what you will and will not tolerate. In short, boundaries empower you to take charge of your life, not someone else's. Now, you may be saying to yourself, why do I need boundaries? Well, personal boundaries are at the root of a fulfilled, balanced life. Without them, people can quickly lose themselves, hear me, in their work, relationships, family, obligations, or even service to others. I had a session with a therapist once, and she asked me, What decisions do you make that are good for you without feeling like you have to make every decision you make has to be in the interest of someone else? And that was like groundbreaking for me. See, it's important that you understand how to set boundaries. That boundaries is really about you. It's not about other people, because they help define what you are willing to say yes to and what you decide to say no to. They give you a sense of agency and sovereignty over your own life, over your own decision making, like an internal compass. Boundaries can all start with a gut feeling that tells you when you have the time or energy to devote to something versus when you need to say no. And someone needs to hear this today. I learned some years ago, and there's actually a book on it. I think it's by Henry McLeod, I think, but the power of no. And maybe I'm thinking about Henry McLeod because I've taught out of his book, Boundaries for Leaders. But there's a book, and you can find it on Amazon. I can't think of the author, but the book is entitled The Power of No, and I believe it's a red cover book, a red cover book. But here's the point: good boundaries free you to live life on your terms and not on other people's terms. Now, of course, if you're married and you have a family, then you have to come together and again work out boundaries, work things out together. But let's talk about briefly healthy boundaries versus unhealthy boundaries. People with solid boundaries tend to have lower levels of stress and higher self-esteem because they prioritize their well-being. On the other hand, people without boundaries may inadvertently let others take advantage of them. I am all too well familiar with that side of it. And so one of the reasons is you actually lack the confidence to speak up for yourself. You lack the confidence to stick to the things that work for you, and be honest with yourself about things that don't work for you or that you don't want to do or participate in or open yourself up to. Why? Because it all ties into having a sense of purpose and identity. There's a counselor by the name of Dr. Nelson that stated, in work or in our personal relationships, poor boundaries lead to resentment, anger, and burnout. I thought that was just powerful when she wrote that. In work or in our personal relationship, poor boundaries lead to resentment, anger, and burnout. I've been there as well. Am I a counselor? Yes. Am I a coach? Yes. But I've experienced these things myself, and that's why I can talk about it. People without boundaries can be easily persuaded into things they don't want to do because they may be acting out of a guilt or obligation rather than self-love. So let me give you an example. Signs of healthy boundaries. You protect yourself from getting taken advantage of. You own your time. High self-esteem and self-respect. You prioritize time for yourself. How many of us are guilty of not prioritizing time for ourselves? Or saying yes when we mean no. You only take on responsibilities you can handle. You don't overcommit yourself. And then here's the big one, and I just touched on it. Authentically say no if you don't have the energy, time, or capacity to do something. I just had someone that I love dearly, and I know they love me. I asked them to assist me once a month with creating this presentation that I do. And they said, you know what, Pastor, my plate is so full, I just can't do it. If you ever have an emergency, I'll be there to give you some relief, but I just can't take on that responsibility. Which brings me to this. Again, what are we talking about? Signs of healthy boundaries. Set limits for others without feeling bad. And then you have to have a strong sense of identity and direction, because if you don't, people will put a label on you, tag you, give you direction, because you don't have identity and you don't have purpose and direction. And then the next thing is take care of your own problems and understand that you can't heal other people's issues for them. That's a big one. By nature, most men are fixers. I am a fixer. And so I've become conscious of that. And I've had to tell myself, Anthony, you can't fix everybody's problems. You can't, listen to me, you cannot heal other people's issues for them. You cannot take on other people's problems as your own. And then it's important that you clearly communicate your needs and wants, and then prioritize your self-care. Most of us in relationships, friendships, associations, marriages, dating, we don't clearly communicate our needs and our wants from that relationship or from that partnership, whatever it is, because we don't know how to prioritize our own self-care. Let me share something with you. A lot of people's lives can matter. But I'm going to tell you, you know the number one person's life that should matter to you? Yours. Your life should matter to you. Suppose you're tired of living your life for other people, or find yourself exhausted by all of the commitments you've made to others. In that case, it's time to set some boundaries and reclaim the power of your time, your energy, and your mental well-being. Now, with that being said, in this episode, I'm going to share 3 nuggets with you, 3 principles as it pertains to creating healthy boundaries. The first thing that you have to do is openly communicate your boundaries. One of the biggest mistakes people make is setting boundaries in their minds, but not openly sharing them with people in their life, with people within your family. Sometimes people assume that you should know their boundaries, but if they didn't clearly communicate where they've drawn the line, how will you know when you've overstepped it? So this can seem a little daunting and scary. I'm telling you what I know, but it can feel like a significant relief. It can give you this exuberant feeling. Listen to me. Once you do it, and once you get it out of the way. Excuse me. So, again, it's important that you learn how to be clear. And it first starts with you being clear with yourself. You have to know your boundaries in order to communicate them in a clear and effective way. And so when it's time for you to communicate that boundary with someone, take a deep breath, gather your resolve, and assertively, in a very loving and kind way, express your needs in a kind, direct way so that the other party will be clear. Now, I want to give you a demonstration of that, how to clearly communicate boundaries. So let's look at a time boundary. Here's how you would clearly communicate a time boundary. I can only stay for an hour, or if you're going to be late, please let me know ahead of time. All right, let's look at an energy boundary. And everybody deals with this with people, especially in their family. I don't have the energy to help you with that request right now, but maybe this can help you. Did you get that? It's okay to let somebody know that, listen, I don't have the capacity. I'm not able to help you with that. But hey, guess what? Here's a resource that might be able to help you. Send them in a different direction. And emotional dumping. We all from time to time get a phone call from somebody that wants to dump. And so here's the response. I understand you're having a hard time, and I want to be there for you, but I don't have the emotional capacity to listen right now. I got a lot of other things going on in my life. I love you. I care about you, but I don't have the capacity for that right now. Perhaps it's personal space. Your personal space. You need to address someone when it comes to your personal space boundary. Here's how you respond. This is what you'll say to them. It makes me feel uncomfortable when you touch or act in this manner. If you can't respect my space, I'll have to leave. Boom, you set that up front. That's a good one, especially for dating or dealing with people with anger issues. Conversational boundaries. Here's how you would communicate your boundary when it comes to what type of conversations you're willing to have, or when somebody's overstepped a boundary. This is not a topic I'm willing to discuss right now. Maybe a commitment boundary. Hey, I don't find those types of comments funny. I'm sorry, not commitment. I said commitment, but a comment boundary. I don't find those types of comments funny. It's not acceptable. Again, maybe a mental boundary. I understand we see things differently, and I respect your opinion, but please don't force it on me. I know you, like me, we've all met people who want to force their opinions on you. But you have to let them know, please don't force your opinion on me. Why? See, that's your boundary. You're teaching them. Maybe a material boundary. Please ask me first before borrowing my possessions. You know, you get that amongst siblings. You get that amongst, people you live with. Or you can say, I would appreciate it if you didn't touch my stuff at all. Why? That's your boundary. Are you following what I'm saying? One of my grandsons, he used to love to, whether it's cologne, shaving, whatever it is, he'd just get it. And I mean, that's my boy, right? But one day I had to tell him, I said, listen, man, you don't just have free access to everything that I have. You have to ask me for what you want. Don't just touch my stuff. And then back to, remember at the beginning, I talked about social media, a boundary. See, here's the response. I don't feel comfortable with you posting that on my Facebook or Instagram page. Don't do that. But then, see, again, you have control over that by making sure that people aren't able to post things on your social media page. To the other extreme, when people DM you, listen to me, you have to have boundaries there. I have told people in a heartbeat, listen, don't send me this garbage. I don't want to hear this kind of stuff. I don't want to see this kind of stuff. You must not know who I am, but I don't play. And so I send that to them, and then I automatically do what? Block them. Because there's certain situations and circumstances where you only get one time to violate a boundary, and then you have to be dealt with. You have to be shut down. So with that being said, fortunately, once someone is aware of your boundaries, most people will respect them and apologize if they accidentally cross the line. So without clear communication, the lines become blurred. So you can quickly find yourself crossing into the more dangerous territory of getting burned out, taken advantage of, or even neglecting your own needs because, again, you have not set clear boundaries. The more precise and direct you can communicate your boundaries, the easier it will be to uphold them. Boundaries are like the rules of a relationship. When they're displayed for all parties involved, it's much easier to respect them. But it must be boundaries that you respect for yourself. If you're out of control, if you're a loose cannon, you're all over the place, let me share something with you. I don't care what you share with someone or communicate to someone about a clear boundary, your behavior communicates something totally different. So one of the things that you have to do, and I'll close with this, reiterate and uphold your boundaries. For yourself first. I can't say that enough. It's for you first. So like the invisible perimeter that I mentioned at the beginning, that fence around a yard that protects a dog from running into the street, boundaries protect you from overextending your mental and emotional well-being. But the dog has to be trained not to cross that line. They have to understand where their yard begins and ends. So it takes time, repetition, and patience so that these things can be set in place and reinforced. And so the same is true of human boundaries. Not everyone will understand or respect your boundaries the first time. It's essential to stand firm in your decision while kindly reminding them of your needs when it's necessary. See, one of the things that I've learned, and I've had German Shepherds, Doberman Pinschers, Mastiffs, and now we have a little poodle named Ziggy. A dog will get confused if the yard ends at the bushes one day but extends to the sidewalk the next day. See, if someone doesn't initially respect your boundaries, remind them, but stay consistent with your original decision. My little Ziggy, our Ziggy, knows her boundary. She knows that she cannot cross. There's a line that she can't cross that's way before the exit of our property. That gate. She is clear on what that line is. And she knows not to pass that line. And if she passes that line, there will be repercussions for it. So here's the wisdom, the insight. Avoid shifting your boundaries for somebody else's comfort. If you said, I don't feel comfortable with you contacting me about work after hours, you probably don't want to send the message that sometimes it's okay for you to text me late at night. While it may be awkward or uncomfortable initially, especially if you're dealing with a coworker or even a supervisor, a person who truly wants to be in your life will respect your decisions. Well, that's it. That's all. And tune in to the next broadcast. And I'm going to talk about this some more. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear your takeaway. God bless you. Until the next time. Thank you for joining me on A Better You podcast.